What's up, guys? Sorry it's been so long. There's been a bunch of stuff happening, but all that stuff is over. And now I'm going to actually try to increase my production rate of my videos. So, thanks for sticking around. Today we're going to be talking about commanders that back in my day, which is about 6 or 7 years ago, when Commander was first blossoming. These are the commanders that were the boogeymen of that time. So this is a list of the 10 biggest boogeymen that used to be played a lot, that are not really played anymore. You might see them occasionally, but definitely not nearly to the same frequency as you did in the before times. Kicking it off, we have Oloro Ageless Aesthetic. For Esper in 3, you get a 4/5 legendary creature, Giant Soldier. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 2 life. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 1. If you do, you draw a card and each opponent loses 1 life. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Oloro Ageless Aesthetic is in your command zone, you gain 2 life. This one's still played every now and again. It was the first creature to really have some sort of eminence effect, which, as we all know, is a super fair and fun and balanced mechanic, right? Right? Anyway, basically you just play whatever you want. You know, life gain strategy, generic control strategy, enchantment strategy. It really didn't matter. Your commander was giving you 2 for your life each turn, and, I mean, that's just enough padding to give you time to do whatever the hell you wanted to do. You never even needed to cast him. He just sat there in the command zone. And if you were down on cards, you could cast him. But most people didn't. I think he's mainly fallen out of favor just because there is a lot more unique and cooler Esper commanders, especially if you do want to go for the life-gainy, control-y enchantment. There's literally commanders for all of those in Esper. So you don't need to rely on the old giant in a chair over there, you know what I'm saying? Next up we have Kalia of the Vast. For 1 and Mardu, you get a 2/2 legendary creature human cleric with flying. Whenever Kalia of the Vast attacks an opponent, you may put an angel, demon, or dragon creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking that opponent. So before the rise of the 30 bajillion dragon commanders we have today, there wasn't really too much options for cheating out big dumb creatures, and Kalia was the best way to do it. This is also back in the day when, heinous cards like Iona weren't banned, which made this card absolutely miserable. This was the original, you can't let it swing, you have to snipe it right before it swings. It's gonna be a huge problem because they're gonna put out a free 6, 7, 8 mana card every time they swing. And nowadays, that's not as crazy as some of the bananas things we've had lately. So I think she's fallen out of favor, There are more interesting dragon commanders, more interesting angel commanders. Hell, there's even more interesting demon commanders. And splitting your focus between 3 tribes is a great way to be inconsistent. Next up we have Neksar the Mindraiser. For 2 and Grixis, you get a 2/4 legendary creature zombie wizard. Beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Neksar the Mindraiser deals 1 damage to that player. This is the original group slug commander. It was just fantastic at you just playing a bunch of wheels, and then everyone takes a bunch of damage, and everyone hates you, and blah 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 blah. The problem was that smart players would just wait until they played the effect, let's say, a wheel or something, and then on the stack, they just snipe Neksar. That way everyone gets their free draws, and you don't die. I think the reason that he's not played anymore is because there are better group slug commanders, and aggroing the entire table to you by damaging them over time while giving them extra cards to answer you is usually a bad game plan. Edgar Markov for 3 and Mardu. You get a 4/4 legendary creature, Vampire Knight, with Eminence. Whenever you cast another vampire spell, if Edgar Markov is in the command zone or on the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token. First strike, haste. Whenever Edgar Markov attacks, put a 1/1 counter on each vampire you control. Personally, I never thought this guy was that crazy. I've played against dozens of Edgar decks. They're just the same thing as Slivers. You give them a couple of board wipes and they're completely shut out. But a lot of people hated him. So much so that he was even banned in 1v1 Commander, which is this format that no one cares about. But he was a problem to some people. And pumping out a bunch of dudes for free with no real counterplay is quite annoying, I would agree. But at the end of the day, you are just playing vampires, and tribes have a very limited ceiling of what they can actually accomplish. I think he stopped getting played just because people hated him so much. And people would just, focus you out of the game the second they had the opportunity to do so. Marin of Clan Neltoth. For 2 black-green, you get a 3/4 legendary creature, Human Shaman. Whenever another creature you control dies, you'll get an experience counter. At the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's mana value is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return to the battlefield, otherwise return it to your hand. This card used to be like the premier Reanimator commander. It was like the one you'd play, and the only one you'd play. Nowadays, there's plenty of other very good Reanimator commanders, and even if, you're doing everything right, you're getting a bajillion experience counters, your payoff is simply reanimate a creature a turn, which is still good, don't get me wrong, but there's just so many more busted and dumb Golgari commanders that I think she's kind of fallen out of favor. As always, the more commanders release, the more people want to try the new flavor, and the ones that are older, like Marin, will slowly whittle out and not be as popular anymore. Now we got Brago, King Eternal. For 2 Azorius, you get a 2/4 legendary creature, Spirit Noble, with flying. Whenever Brago, King Eternal deals combat damage to a player, exile any number of target non-land permanents you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under your control. Yet again, back in the day, when you really didn't have a lot of options, Brago was like the #1 Blink commander available, but we have gotten so many Blink commanders over the years that I think he's just not very good anymore. I mean, Abdul by himself with no background, I feel is better because he does it just by entering. If you're able to blink him at least once a turn, you're accomplishing the same thing as Brago, but you get a bunch of dudes, and you don't actually have to hit anyone. Because Brago needs to connect, and if everyone has blockers, your commander does nothing. Next up is the Gruel Booger himself, Omnath, Locus of Rage. For 3 red, green, you get legendary creature, Elemental 5/5, Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red and green elemental creature token. Whenever Omnath, Locus of Rage, or another elemental you control dies, Omnath deals 3 damage to any target. As per usual, power creep has taken this guy far away, off into the who cares land. And, I mean, Gruel is already one of the least popular color combinations for 2 in, like, all of Magic to begin with. And there's so many landfall commanders that I think the Booger just doesn't cut it anymore. I think even his, 3 mana and 4 mana counterparts are just better. They don't provide as much raw power, no, but they also come out nearly twice as fast and do just as much crazy shenanigans. All in all, Omnath is a classic landfall boogeyman, but I guess he's just a useless boogerman now. Alesha, who smiles at death. For 2 and a red, you get a 3/2 legendary creature, human warrior. With first strike, whenever Alesha, who smiles at death, attacks, you may pay hybrid Orzhov. If you do, return target creature card with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped and attacking. This was sort of an alternative version to Kalia, where instead of playing big dumb dummies, you play big dummies with cool effects with low power. And this would let you cheat out, 5-6 drop creatures with fantastic abilities but low power. Again, she was fine. Kind of like a wacky hybrid between Marin and Kalia, and overall, she's just not that crazy anymore. Like I said, there's just so many better Reanimator commanders that she just kind of falls flat these days. Narset Enlightened Master. For 3 blue, red, white, you get a 3/2 legendary creature, human monk, with first strike and hexproof. Whenever Narset Enlightened Master attacks, exile the top 4 cards of your library until the end of turn. You may cast non-creature cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. She's still terrifying. Even to this day, among all these commanders on this list, if someone's playing her across the table from me, I'm most worried about them. Because they only really need 1, maybe 2 swings before they've accrued so much value that it's impossible to keep up with. If your deck is curved properly, you'll have a bunch of 5, 6, 7 plus drops in there, and then every time she swings, you're casting about a total of 15, 20 mana's worth of free stuff every single swing. Ridiculous. Honestly, just crazy. But she's been relegated to a combo commander because people just run her with a bunch of extra combats and extra turns, and then they swing once and they win. Boring, snooze, who cares? I think that hopefully she doesn't make a resurgence, because she did get reprinted in the new Guff Precon, but I would like to never see her ever again, please. And finally, Rune of the Hidden Realm. For 2 and Bant, you get a 4/4 legendary creature, Rhino Soldier, Vigilance, Trample. Tap 2 tap, exile another target creature, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Just like Brago, this is a bygone of an old era when Blink was hard to come by in Commanders, and now it's just been printed so much that we even have better Bant Blink Commanders. Lirelia, whatever, the Magpie lady, this lady, right here. She is just, honestly, just better than Rune. Easier to manipulate, easier to interact with. She hits your opponent's stuff and disrupts them. Same thing Rune has the option to. I don't know, he's just, he's a relic of an old time, man, and you're very unlikely to ever see a Rune ever again, honestly. And that is the list of the commanders that tormented me when I started playing Commander, and are no longer really a problem anymore, thankfully. None of these commanders are necessarily bad. They are, of course, crazy for their time, and some of them are even crazy for this time, but most of them are pretty okay, and they've been power crept into oblivion. Let me know if this was nostalgic for you as it was for me looking up all these wacky nightmares, and you have a nice day.